Welcome to the ruins of my once proud Manzac Studios. My marvelous backdrop was destroyed by 2 3-pound kittens, and I'm in the process of going to put a green screen back there, and then we can have all sorts of fun behind me. So yeah, this is you get a peek. Look what's on my shelves. That used to be a game of some sort, I think. All right, I've been gone for a while. I know that, and I'll tell you why. I'll tell you what transpired while I was gone. You knew why. I went to a reunion, 55th high school class reunion. Okay, we'll start off with a quote from one of my favorite cartoon strip characters, Marvin the Mage. Magic will get you through times of no gold better than gold will get you through times of no magic. And of course, he's paraphrasing Gilbert Shelton. And the fabulous Fairy Freak Brothers. Yeah, you know, if you're broke and you got to eat and you can do a little sleight of hand or something like that, okay, magic could be advantageous there. You know, it's one of those questions that go either way. It's fun though. It's a good way to start our this episode, is because I generally agree with it. All right, next one was a little disturbing. Hey Tim, great to see you still making these videos. Well, shit. What do I figure? Okay, still great to see me. Well, all right. Did you think I was going to be dead? Or is it more likely you watched a long time ago and and you go, oh, hell, that old dude's still on the video, and so you came back and listened later. Interesting. Inquiring minds want to know. All right, here we go. In defense of the monk. Well, I don't think there is one, but I'll read on anyway. Have to say that the class first introduced the idea of martial arts and additional concepts of hand-to-hand combat to the rules that are, and still, very much needed to simulate fighting within the game. I don't agree with that. True, it doesn't represent the full spectrum of martial arts as a whole, but it gives you a vision of a sort of medieval, Eastern westernized version. The class entails something more akin to Kwai Chang Caine than to Jackie Chan. Yeah, okay. If you wanna go play chop socky, I go play Bushido. All right. Would it be a handy little trick to have up your sleeve that some old dude taught you this mode? But I'm sorry. I cannot envision a climate in any game that I would run where monks would be anything but marks. Until they get to be very high level, they're really not much good at anything, and they have no special abilities that will prevent them from being shredded with claws or punctured with teeth or anything like that. If you think that your world likes having, bar fights with kung fu, or if you think that you're going to pull some kind of Shaolin move on an orc, and okay, that's your world. But in my world, I don't need them. My world is brutal and bloody and violent, and okay, as an NPC or a bad guy, somebody who has these skills, these hand-to-hand unarmed skills, swell. As a player character, no. Nope. All right, now here's an encouraging. I finally caught up and have seen every episode. Have to say, as an old school player, 78, okay, I love your take on things and enjoy listening to these in the car. Okay, well, I don't care where you listen to them. Now for my question. As we know, hit points is a representation of a character or monster's ability to avoid a fatal blow. Right? And I just saw on Facebook today, again, the definition that Gary wrote out about that how the fact that it's an amorphous type of... Okay. Each hit doesn't deliver an actual visible wound, etc. Of course not. If every time you took a wound, then you got a scar, after a while you couldn't move because the scar tissue would have you knitted up. With that in mind, I've always been curious why the clerical spells that return hit points were called Cure Light Wounds, Cure Great Wounds, etc. It would almost seem like Restore Vigor or Rejuvenate Energy may have been used instead. I'm genuinely curious if this was ever discussed or what your opinion is on this. Always love the content. Look forward to each episode. Okay. I had nothing to do with the selection of that nomenclature. That was done before I got there. To understand, and please remember that the first iterations, the OD&D, had more than one weird mistake like this in it. But we now view as a mistake. D&D came from miniatures rules. Not role-playing. There was no role-playing. D&D invented role-playing. I just did an interview with a young man from Cellar University in Carbondale, tracing the fact that D&D and that game club down there had very strong ties back when I was there. The selling of D&D was that they were going to go after miniatures players and show them a new way, because that's what it came out of up in Minneapolis, St. Paul. Restore Vigor, it was not a term that would have fallen lightly on the ear of the market they were aiming at. It was an easier way of saying restore a little bit of your sprightliness or restore a lot of your sprightliness. So it was easier to sell it that way. It was easier to understand it that way. Yeah, on the one hand, we said it wasn't actual cuts and bruises and blood, but then on the other hand, we're saying cure them. Well, it was an ease of grasping decision that was made. Not by me. Came about in the very, very beginnings of the Braunstein game, and then Dave's game, and then Gary's game, and it just came along kind of organically. It's an easier concept to understand, and it's a quick shorthand for gamers, war gamers particularly then. Hit points was that was a totally new concept. Up to this point, chainmail had hit points. You either had one, almost everybody, or you had two, which meant you could be hit once and not die right away. Multiple hit points, gathering hit points, was a whole new concept. As I started to say earlier when I was discussing with the young man from Carbondale, and he asked me questions in the questions like what early influences, and I told him there weren't any. We invented the concept of role-playing. We invented hit points and levels and all these kinds of things, and saving throws and all that. We invented it. There wasn't any before us. The only role-playing before Dungeons & Dragons game was psychoanalytical, psychological, psychiatry stuff done in group sessions or in office sessions where role-playing was used to work out problems and aggressions and whatever. And I just realized that I wasn't dressed correctly. My apologies. Been wearing that hat all day. So, that's yeah, it's one of those preposterous assumptions. There's no oil that you can carry around in a little, 5 ounce, 6 ounce clay pot with a cork stopper that you can throw and ignite and make it. It doesn't happen, but it does in D&D because why? It's magic. So yeah, it was discussed only in that occasionally Gary and I would sit down and do a blue sky, and I'd needle him about something, and he and why it was this, and didn't and it just it got up like that, brought up like that, but nothing concrete or no seminal discussions. Okay, imagine a setting that's completely underground, like an enormous decaying dwarven empire with labyrinthine passages leading to dungeons and settlements. How would you handle overland travel in such a situation? Okay, when I think overland travel, I make an assumption. Gross travel versus minor travel. Minor travel being in the ruins themselves, no matter how extensive a normal set of ruins, not this megalopolis underground. Hans Cummings deals with enormous underground things in his Drakenor books. Check them out. Hans Cummings. In this case, going from settlement to ruin to whatever, is akin to going from settlement to ruin to village above ground. And so, therefore, it's condensed. I would not role play out every corridor for a total of 35 miles to get somewhere underground. Boring! Or a slaughterhouse. What I probably would do is I would assess the distances to be traveled, the hazards along the way, potential hazards, what I could logically, fairly write into those greater or grosser distances, and I would handle the underground just as though I'd handle the overground. If you were going 40 miles above ground and you had to camp overnight, well, okay, depending upon where you are, what's the possibilities? Just start with wildlife and then go up from there. Same thing I would do underground. What's the distance? What's the local population? What's the probabilities? What's good for the storyline? And I would condense it. Just like you condense sleeping overnight. If the group camps, holes up, forts up, whatever, I would do the same with a big labyrinth underground, especially if you're talking about miles and miles away and like an entire mountain range that's been undermined by dwarves or whoever, some ancient race now long departed. There's small travel. That's when you sit down, okay, you find yourself at the entrance to this underground tunnel, or whatever your setup line is. That's minor. That's as opposed to gross. That's minor movement. You're talking in terms of yards. Might be hundreds of yards, but you're talking in terms of yards, not miles, or kilometers if you're watching this in Europe. You're not, grosser, minor. Same way. What kind of possible hazards would you present to a group traveling that distance above ground based on the terrain they're in? Now, granted, your terrain's a little more restrictive, you're underground, but only restricted by the limits of your imagination. Hang on, please. Okay. Gotta disagree with hallucinatory terrain being useless, though maybe it's better for NPCs than PCs. Recently, I used an evil wizard who relied on that spell to disguise their base of operations beneath an illusory hill. A lot of magic's utility depends on the particularity of the set and campaign and the way direct engagement with the fictional world is dealt with. Good point. Case in point, I think Tensor's floating disc is a fine spell in the right circumstances, but a lot of my players dismiss it as pointless when they learn they can't weaponize it or use it to fly around on. Then they realize I actually track encumbrance, and when they happen on a massive hoard of treasure they can't haul out in one go, and where there are real time pressures, like a competing party of treasure seekers, it clicks. Yeah. Right. I believe that hallucinatory terrain is some... I actually believe you could classify spells, and you could make others like this that are far more valuable for the NPCs, because the NPCs are either the supporting characters or the antagonists. In reference to spells in 5th, yes, there is too much magic in 5th. The assumption is that the wizard has a book full of spells that they decipher as they go up levels and gain more slots. And in 5th, just about every class and subclass has access to some kind of spells now in 5th. That's anathema. That's terrible. The novelty of magic and being able to make magic or create magic or invoke magic should be limited to those people that delve in deep in it. Now, it's not to say that one of those type of people couldn't make an amulet or a charm or whatever that a non-magic person could wear around their neck and activate or whatever. But I favor delineation of the classes, and if that makes me unwoke or something like that, well, it's not like I'm discriminating against any classes. Tensor's Disc is a great example of, wow, isn't that handy to have it? And that's something that would make great. Put it in a locket and wear it around your neck or on a charm bracelet on your arm or whatever, and then when you need it, there it is. Wow. That'd be great. Wonderful. There's a lot of spells that would be really fun to put into something for use later. And some of them could only be used by magic users, and some could maybe be used by anybody smart enough to figure it out. Not a spell per se, but a gadget like that maybe. You know, not a spell where not a conjuration or a summoning. All right, now I'm going to do something that I don't normally do, and that is I'm going to pan something. As most of us, especially old-time war gamers, will admit to in their deepest hearts, is that we have a pretty gene. That when we're in a classy magazine store and we start picking up military history magazines, we see neat pictures and graphs and everything. We go, oh, pretty, and we're drawn to them. I've been like that for most of my life. Now, as it happened on this past weekend, when I had gone back to the Quad Cities, I started to run out of reading material. I was I thought I had enough of one book, and my next book's like literally this thick, and I didn't want to drag it back if I wasn't going to start reading it. So I went to the Barnes & Noble over across the river in Bettendorf, Iowa, and I found some magazines. And I enjoy a couple of the British magazines, not necessarily military history magazines. And then every once in a while I'll see something that caught my eye. And this is what caught my eye. World War II, bringing history to light, the biggest blunders of World War II. And the worm dangled and I bit. It was $20. But I looked at all the pictures and I said, oh, pretty. Some nice pictures, nice charts, whatever. Don't waste your $20. Not even for the nice pretties. This piece of journalistic slop, ineptitude, is not worth $5, even for the pretties. There are a couple, 3 articles in here that are very thought-provoking and very well worth the reading. There's a whole lot of others that are full of mistakes, dubious assumptions, well at odds with many other opinions that I've read. It's got missing captions, duplicated captions for photographs, same caption underneath 2 different photographs. It's easy to tell which one it was supposed to be, but then you still don't know what the hell the other one was. It's poorly edited, even for the fact that I'm sure a few of these are British authors. It's still poorly edited. And as a magazine lover and a former magazine editor 4 times over, this is a piece of shit. Wish I had my $20 back. Okay, Patreon people. Thank you for your support. I wish there were more of you. Come on, go click the button, please. Now I really do have to rebuild my studio. I got to go out and get a frame for the green screen and all that shit. So, thank you for your continued support. I'm gonna do a Q&A. I know I owe you one from this month, but there again, at the end of the month, I was out of town traveling. And I'm going to put a question to you. I had planned to do it on October the 8th. That's a Saturday. I'm willing to let the Patreons vote on if Saturday evening, Saturday night at like 10 o'clock Eastern, if that's not a good time. Okay, you want to do it on Wednesday night, late, I don't care. Let's make it more accessible to you. I'm caught up on Unfiltereds. Again, if you aren't a Patreon subscriber, think about it, please, and I'll continue to upgrade my studio facilities. But now you can see, if you look over my head, there's the picture of Joe Manganiello and me. Oh, damn, Kitty tried to jump on my leg with claws. Hi, Kitty. And his lovely wife, Sophia Vergara. And that little person in the middle is me. All right, now I want to talk about a Kickstarter that's going right now. It's called D20 Delving. And I really, really wish that everybody... Oh, the cats are raising hell. That everybody listening to this would go look at it. D20 Delving. I think it looks... I have had nothing whatsoever to do with the development of this game. Though I have read through the rules, and I think it's going to be a fun family game. And then part of the reason it's going to be a fun game is it's inclusive. This is the most inclusive game ever to be published. It's so inclusive that NPR wants to know more about it before it even funds. Why is it so inclusive? Because all the little event cards and happening cards and all those things have a verbal audio component. which means visually impaired are now absolutely on a par with everybody else. Developmentally delayed, people who have difficulty with literacy, are on a par with everybody else. Basically, blind people can at least hear it rather than to have somebody. And by blind, I don't mean I'm not making light of complete blindness or whatever. I have a couple of older war game friends that we help with the board and certain color combinations and whatever, because your eyes go to hell, and it happens. So I'd really, really, really like you to go look at this and get on board. Get on board. It's an excellent idea. I am not going to get rich on this. I'll make more 1 month on my Patreon than I will on this game project. I was brought onto it after the fact, and simply to do the reading of the cards. Think about it. This is an interactive game. This is as interestingly different and new and interactive as the Dark Tower game. Think about it. It's a melding of technologies that's not been done before in gaming. Be a part of it. Help fund it. You really have an opportunity here to have a little hand in history and to say, yeah, I'm willing to be inclusive. I want to be inclusive. Okay, and last but not least, report on the 55th class reunion of Moline High School in Moline, Illinois, graduating class, 1967. It was fun. I've mentioned in years past that as you go to more and more of these, people you didn't even have any idea who they were, because if you were in a class the size of ours, when you graduated, or even 25 years ago, now you do, because they keep coming and the number keeps getting whittled down. There's fewer of us each time. The first night was the meet and greet, and we were all sitting around at the tables, greeting and having a drink, and they came around with what I call the dead list. All the people from our class that we know are dead. And there's 170 of them or something, and that was a real downer, a real downer on the night. But it's also a reminder, that everything passes. We all pass. There were fewer this reunion than there were at the last, and they're no longer with us, and that's always a little bit of a bummer. But it's just really great seeing people that you ran around with literally as kids. For the first time, I had people ask me about my involvement with fantasy role-playing and D&D. See, these guys all graduated in 67 and went to college or into the workforce, or got married or whatever. I spent the next 4 years in the Navy, so I have this 4-year gap. So they've been going to school longer than I had, and so by the time I got through school, they already had 4 years in the workforce. And they are not the ones that we caught with the gaming wave. That 4-year difference made an enormous difference. Enormous difference. Both societally and socially and culturally. And but a couple of them, they had heard about it. And one lady who I was good friends with back in high school, she had a couple of nephews who were nutsy over it, so I gave her a couple of the coins to take back to him, and she and while I was back, I went and saw my old art teacher from junior college, who through his classes really put me on a path to where I ended up. I learned calligraphy, typography, layout, design, all in a class that didn't have anything to do with that. It was a liberal arts class, manual, almost. I don't know. This is pre-computer, so we use press type, so it was manual labor. But I went to visit him. He's 11 years older than I am, still in good shape, officially retired, but got all sorts of side hustles doing. And he's the man that drew the first Dragon cover and the first cover for Little Wars magazine. So, he had a special place in my heart, and he's doing well, which I'm delighted. And we had a lovely chat just about everything in politics and current military situation, and it's just a great guy to sit down and talk with for a while. I really enjoyed it. And I guess that about brings it to a close. That's what I've been doing. Let's see what's coming. Nothing till Game Hole. I plan to be a game hole with bells on, so to speak, and running the wheel and getting into shit and annoying people, probably. Something I have a knack. If you have a knack for something, it's a talent given to you by fate, destiny, the gods, whatever. Use it. And on that, I will say, until the next time, Dodata Govi. Hello, and welcome to my cellar.
The curmudgeon who wrote about the dungeons. Now he's the feller, live from the cellar. Talks about D&D and old school RPGs. Still quite a feller, the curmudgeon in the cellar. Last man around when them rates went down. Calling Gary in that Lake Geneva town. Hey Gary, it's an awful mess. Let me edit, we'll have success. D&D and Dragon magazine. He's the curmudgeon who wrote about the dungeons. Now he's the feller, live from the cellar. Talks about D&D and old school RPGs, but he's still quite the feller, the curmudgeon in the cellar. Magic missile, it's a mortar shell. Make it hit in the first level spell. Brought psionics to the game to attack that wizard's brain. ESR and fantasy, collection of micro armory, Titan with tramp under a tree, high as could be. He's the curmudgeon who wrote about the dungeons. Now he's the feller, live from the cellar. Talks about D&D and old school RPGs, but he's still quite the feller, the curmudgeon in the cellar. Still quite the feller, the curmudgeon in the cellar. Curmudgeon.